Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Here we go. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. How are you today? You are at the spot, the place, my location, where the conversation is pointed right in your face. The conversations are sharp and the guests are never dull. Today we are going to Portugal. That's on my vacation list for next year. We're going to be talking with Karin Peters. Karin started her career as a child psychologist working with the gifted population. And we've always said, oh, they're gifted, they're super smart, but they have other challenges as well that we don't realize. Being highly sensitive, not maybe fitting in, maybe being more introverted. Because they have these gifts, they're challenged with their learning ability and adapting to what we consider mainstream. But now she has evolved. Being a mother of three, she is now working with the adult population of highly sensitive and gifted individuals. And we don't really take that into consideration, but that could lend to another set of challenges. The overachiever, the depression, the not feeling good enough, again, not fitting in, being isolated, being a sexy nerd, all of those things. We're going to talk to her about that, what that looks like, how we can pinpoint these characteristics, and what we can do to adapt and adjust. Welcome her to the show. How are you, Karin?
Thank you so much, April. I'm so glad to be here. I am excellent today. Thank you.
How's the weather there in Portugal?
Oh, it's really hot.
Really?
Yeah, my area is usually not very warm, but we just got like this really, like this wind of heat that just arrived yesterday. So today, burning up.
Yeah, it has been hot here in San Diego. It was 107.
Oh my God. Yeah, I
I
don't know
know.
what that is. I'm a Celsius girl.
That
So
okay, Celsius, that's like maybe 35, 36.
yeah, it's something like that today as well here. And you
And
know,
they say there's no global warming, right?
yeah, well now
Okay.
it's really but we've had a really pleasant summer, and then in this area it's weird, but September is usually warmer than the summer months. So
Mm,
this is like a normal thing here. But I prefer the milder temperatures.
I get it. I get it. You've had an opportunity to live on several places on the planet. The Netherlands, Dominican
Hmm.
Republic, Canada, and now
Yeah.
Portugal. What does that look like being a global citizen?
Um, I think one of the most interesting things is that your mind just really opens up. You know, you have your heart opens up to cultures. Your mind understands more different dynamics. You know that it makes you less judgmental, right? Like it just the understanding that life we are so defined by our culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to then make judgment or pass judgments on something that is just not your culture. So it makes you much more aware, makes you it yeah, more understanding and more compassionate. You know, your heart opens up to more experiences, I think.
It
That's I
is.
think
And I
that's
mean, again, like you told me, you lived from one end of the spectrum to the other.
yeah,
Growing up, being exposed to very rich, very affluent people living in a middle class home. But then you would go to the Dominican and you say, like, five of you would be in the same bed. So
yeah,
you have that multicultural experience. And I tell people all the time, prejudice is a learned behavior,
yeah.
it's not ingrained in people. And there's always class and color and stature. That's always going to be a differentiator, but it shouldn't be the line in the sand. Then you
Well,
have, go ahead.
yeah, well, even for me, it was even within the Dominican Republic because my I was a middle class. middle class family within the Dominican Republic. Then I would go on the weekends to my very poor Dominican family. And then I would go to school in a very elite school where I would, I was there because I would win the scholarships every year.
Mhm.
So within even my initial environment, I was navigating all these experiences from the start. Yeah.
It is, but it makes you a much more rich person. And I can
Yeah.
appreciate that. I love to travel. And when I travel, the last thing I put in my suitcase is my American. It really,
Yeah.
I don't want to immerse myself. I don't want to come and be perceived that I have a pompous attitude or a sense of entitlement or you think you're better than or you're arrogant. I just go with it. I learn to say please and thank you in every language that I go to, and that is your ticket.
Yeah,
That is your ticket.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's just just a different awareness of life, you know. I even loved it so much that my first year of university, I studied cultural anthropology because I thought I was like,
Oh,
I love culture so much. I want to know more, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So again, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
How I show up in the world. Huh. I show I'm multidimensional. Let's just call it that, You're I'm so multi-passionate that sometimes it's very difficult to pinpoint like what do I actually do. But as in your introduction, I started my journey within the gifted community. I encountered that as I was lucky enough that in my university in the Netherlands, I had one of the only centers where I could do my master's within that domain, within the gifted community, within giftedness. And I was just astounded, like, wow, this is a thing, like me, I can study me, because it always starts with ourselves. I can study me and I can actually go out and then help others like me to flourish, to thrive in life. Because that was one of the first things that was very clear as I was studying it and as I had lived it, that it's not always just like, oh, it's a gifted kid, he'll be fine, she'll be fine, she's smart, right? But that's not the case. There's so many challenges that we encounter on the journey that it actually is it's the there's a bigger chance that you don't make it and that you don't flourish than that you do as a gifted person, because it's not about just the smart, it's the intensity that plays such a big role in it. And there are many other underachievers. There's so much anxiety, there's depression, there's overachievers. So there are so many facets that 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 I explored within it. So as soon as I finished university, I started my own practice
Hmm.
because I was like, I wanted to do this thing, and I was one of the few experts in the Netherlands at the time. So nobody was hiring like me
Wow.
because it was so new. So I just said, no, I'm going to start my own thing, and that's what I did. And I advocated for gifted education, for even just gifted awareness in schools. There was just so little awareness under schools, and teachers had no clue. They thought everyone, was like, if you're gifted, you're born with a little software package where like it's just activated and you automatically have skills, or
Yeah,
it's you're all
read
Einsteins.
like three grades ahead of the other children in your class. Okay, but let's dial back a little bit because there's
Yeah,
a couple things I want to break down.
yeah.
Number one, how were you identified as gifted? Did your parents know that you were gifted, or as you progressed in life, you fell into that genre? And
No, my dad was a very gifted man. And I was the third child, his third child. I was my mother's first child, and I was my father's third child.
okay.
So he just right away said this child is different. And so by the time I was 3, he had me tested and assessed so that I would have what I needed. So I started school at 3.
Mm,
um, also, and I loved it. I was the little girl who would sniff books. I would go to school sick because I didn't want to miss it. I loved school. So he made a good call in placing me. It was a very let's just say like elite environment.
right.
Um, but I loved it. I was that kid, right? Like I just couldn't wait to get to school. I was up on time, ready to go. My siblings were like, we have to drag them out of bed, and I was there. Let's go.
Mm. Did you socialize easy? Did you make friends easy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was one of the lucky kids, I think. I was actually the popular kid in the class.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was because of the environment, where it was actually you had to be really good in school there to make it.
Right.
So I think, because if I think back, the smart kids were the popular ones. It wasn't because it was such a competitive environment.
Right.
So I was the most popular girl in the class.
Well, I can tell you got such a bubbly personality and a $1 million smile, so that was easy to gravitate to. But
but
a
it
lot of
but
times
I
people,
wasn't at home. This is the weird thing. At, I was able to be two different things. At home, I was very shy and introverted, and in school, I just like put on a new mask, and I was another person.
mm,
So because at home, that part of me wasn't really accepted. At home,
mm,
it was just like, you're weird and
yeah. Well, did your other okay, now there was three children, but did your mother and father, when they were together, were there other siblings there?
yeah. So I had also a younger brother and a younger sister. And they were my biggest bullies. They bullied me until like I'm still processing all that bullying.
I get it. So as you progress, you get into school, you start trying to find your way, you excel in a lot of
Yeah.
things, but you identify that there's a gap and a need. And I don't know, and again, I'm speaking from layman's terms, so forgive me, those in the gifted community, because I know that I've had another person on there, they get highly sensitive even using the word gifted. But is that in a category of mental health? And the reason why I say that is because you've got autistic, you've got special needs, and I'm not saying that that's this, but this is a different type of mindset. This is a different type of programming and processing, and you are a psychologist. So
Yeah.
would this fall into a mental health category?
No.
Okay.
So giftedness is a trait. So it's not in the DSM. It's not qualified as a diagnosis. It's just a trait. It's a personality trait.
Okay.
Just like high sensitivity. It's high sensitivity is also like the romantic name for it, right? We call it, but actually the scientific name is sensory processing sensitivity. So it's also not a diagnosis. It's a trait. So it's an innate trait. You're born with it's more a description of um, of depth of processing.
Mm,
So so especially for the high sensitivity part, it's about how do you process stimuli? How is your body receiving sensory input? And we know that when a highly sensitive brain and a gifted brain is under a fMRI, that more parts of the brain light up, and that there's no filter. There's very little filter. It's a normal brain has this like, okay, this is this type of input. This part of the brain will light up. The highly sensitive brain and the gifted brain often just lights up like many more parts. So that means that there's a bigger rush of input into your body. So within that spectrum of traits, can have, of course, different variations to it. Just as in the normal population, let's say, you'll have different variations of your personality traits. And then you will have, of course, then in the autism spectrum, and somebody who, had too much trauma as a child and is sensitive, that anchors deeper into the body.
Okay.
So it's then you'll have more anxiety disorders, depressions, things like that. And that's where it's different. It's not a mental health. It's not a diagnosis.
Right.
It's a trait.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now, what would parents look for in these traits? Okay, because you're a brand new parent.
Yeah.
And the kid did not come with instructions out of the womb.
No.
It's
No.
trial and error. You get
Yeah.
them into the schools, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone is going to respond differently.
Yeah.
Some children don't respond because they're bored. What you're
Yeah.
teaching them, it's been,
Exactly.
they just suck it up like a sponge.
Yeah.
So the teacher is saying, well, why aren't they completing their assignment?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they doing this? They are quick to put them on the negative instead of the positive. Teachers are not trained because here in the United States, you got 20, 25 kids to a class, one teacher, no teacher's aides.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you have this highly sensitive child, and if they are not in tune, or the parent is looking for something or notice something, they're quick to say, oh, well, this child has this, that, and the other. Let's medicate them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that they sit there, that they're quiet. I know my daughter had a reading challenge. And when everybody else would be reading, she'd be up playing with the turtle. She'd be out
Mm-hmm.
looking out the window, and the teacher was like, come over here, Chanel, do this, do that. Well, Chanel wasn't interested in that because she wasn't following along. So they wanted to label her. And I said, I'm not seeing these other characteristics when she's at home. Let's do a deeper dive, because a teacher is there to teach. They are
Yeah.
not a psychologist. They are not a
No.
pediatrician. They cannot diagnose. So don't
No.
be so quick to jump on what they think could be a situation. This child could be highly gifted.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the things that parents can, pick up on?
So it's actually pretty present since birth. I mean, you can pick up on it already when they're a baby. And it is that what I just said, it's that higher sensory input. They're very sensitive to sounds. They're very sensitive to their environments. They seem to pick up on energies easier. That makes it a little bit, and even that spectrum is pretty broad, but we notice that they develop quicker, like they're crawling quicker, walking quicker, or they're skipping milestones. So instead of they're going from not crawling to walking. Their speech develops faster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so as a baby you will see that, and they have like a higher awareness or deeper connection to their parents. Like they're very like trying to connect, when they're nonverbal, they're falling around. They don't want to be sitting down all the time, just like, your baby, just sit. No, they want to be taken around, and they want to see it, and already really be aware of their environment, because they are more aware of their environment.
And they're absorbing all of that
They're
and
absorbing
taking
everything.
and
Yeah,
processing it. Okay.
exactly. So those are one of like those are as a baby. When as soon as they get to those toddler ages, you will see then that their speech, that their language skills really develop really quickly, and that they just, they're connecting things, and you're like, whoa, was that a sentence?
Right.
You can really see that. The unfortunate thing about our schooling environment is that we know from research that children start underachieving, gifted children, they start underachieving within 15 days after starting school. Because this is what happens. They go to school really excited because they think these are another, parents usually have been, you're going to start learning, right? You're going to go and you're going to, we're hyping them up and we're telling them all about it. And they get to school And it's like this huge disappointment. And they're
Right.
going, what the heck? You know,
Right.
their little brains are absorbing, like, okay, this is the status quo. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be in the corner playing with the dolly. I shouldn't be wanting to read. I shouldn't be wanting to do this. Huh. And especially girls, it's like within a week, they've adapted their behavior to their peers because they're women have that tendency. We want to belong more, and we're more attuned to other people's needs. So girls are adapting really, really quickly, so that underachieving starts within 2 weeks of getting into school if the environment isn't the right environment for them.
Right.
So it's very difficult then for teachers to assess the behavior in the right way because it happened that quickly.
Then you have teachers that have low tenure. This is their second, third year.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have children of their own. They don't have the expertise and the skill set of a teacher that might have 5, 7, 8, 10 years into a particular grade. They may be teaching one specific subject
Yeah.
versus the whole curriculum. So I can see why it's hard for them to identify. But as you get into your teenage years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you move into adulthood, what are some of the impactors on their lives?
So when we're talking about when you're going into the teenage years, uh, I mean, for all teenagers, it's a very difficult time, right? We know that this is the time where our brain is quickly evolving. It's pruning. So it's most people think it's only like, oh, it's ripening, but at the same time, on the teenage years, our brains are being pruned. We're like everything that like you haven't been using, um, it's cut off. Literally, it just that we're not using that. So because we're strengthening connections, that's how our brain can ripen, because when it starts strengthening connections within what you're using. Unfortunately, that means also that so if you take an IQ test in a teenage brain, a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, and 16-year-old, you'll have different results.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that extreme what the teenage brain is doing. So everything that you've been going through just gets enhanced. So it's strengthening actually those neurological pathways that you don't want to be strengthening if it's in a negative way,
Right.
right? So for a teenager, we notice that if there's some type of neurodivergence connected to it as well, it will come out in those teenage years. When that pruning has taken place and kind of like your complementary neurons are
Right.
gone to support you, and then it comes out in a stronger way. So if there's a comorbidity, like there's a neurodivergence playing it, you will see that like autism, then they're all of a sudden diagnosed with autism also as well, or ADHD. Wow. It's like their support system is gone.
Is very difficult to diagnose because
Mhm.
there could be a multitude, or again, like you say, many things that are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, highly sensitive, is that considered? I don't know. I'm trying to. Highly sensitive, is that acting out? Is that emotional? Is that behavioral issues? What do
No,
you mean by
again, that's
acting
a
out?
trait.
It's
It's
a
it's a
trait.
trait. It's a trait. So we're talking about 20% of each population will be highly sensitive. So let's just say, traditionally speaking, historically speaking, the highly sensitive were always the healers, the shamans, the priests, the wise woman, the nurse, the
You say the white woman, the Karen.
the wise woman, the wise woman,
Oh, the
uh,
wise woman.
the wise woman. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically they're the ones that were always like it naturally more introverted, more into alone time,
Are they more
so
empathic?
more empathic, because of that. Again, I'm talking like the main the main traits or the main characteristic that we found in the research in high sensitivity is that it's a depth of processing. So that encompasses everything. So if you are your depth of processing, you're more attuned to others. You are able to process information in a deeper way. You're more compassionate. So it's that is actually what high sensitivity is. It's um and of course, if it's not diagnosed correctly, it could be diagnosed as ADHD. It could be that because you like if you're receiving so much input all the time and you don't know how to filter that, then then you don't have attention, and that's you can't focus. My daughter, for example, my oldest, she learned to just shut down in school. She could fall
Mm.
asleep with her eyes open. Like seriously, she still talks about it. She could fall asleep with her eyes open just to shut down all the input. And then, that meant that when she got home, she had to do a lot of work because she had not picked up anything in school because she couldn't process all that, the noise, the kids, the this, the that. And then she would just shut down. So high sensitivity it's just a trait, and it's found in every population. They found it in fish. They found it it's like there's always 20% of any population that has a different wiring.
Mm.
And I believe that we all have our function in our society, right? I think we are needed. The highly sensitive are very much needed because we are the therapists, we are the psychologists, we're the ones that are
Mm.
wanting to tune into others in a different way.
Right.
Yeah,
So now you've moved from adolescence to adulthood.
yeah,
And so you're in the work environment.
yes.
And I am hearing, this is different, but I'm hearing and I'm finding and uncovering and interviewing more adults that are finding that they have ADHD. They
Mm-hmm.
did not have it, but they're finding out because now they're getting their children tested and they're saying, wow, is this something that is epigenetic? Is this generational? Possibly.
I have so much to say about that. Are you sure you want to go there?
Bring it.
Okay. So ADHD, if you have not been under a brain scan, it's it's not a diagnosis. It's just a set of symptoms. So if you have not eliminated all the sugars and carbs from your diet, all the gluten from your diet, you haven't done like a huge elimination diet. If you haven't, done the work to actually clean up your brain, then it's just the set of symptoms that we call ADHD is just telling you that there's something not functioning. Because this is something, because I'm a child psychologist and I learned this in my training. Like, it's not a diagnosis, it's a set of symptoms. If you check off enough set of symptoms, they say you have ADHD, but they can't find it in your brain. So it's not
Is that something that would show up in a brain scan?
well, they haven't found it. So that's the thing. So then my daughter, who's now 24, she just finished her master's in the same study. She did the same child and psychologist training, and she was shocked. Like 2 years, 3 years in her study, she goes, "It's not real. I'm telling you for 20 years, but people don't want to hear that." So this is where I'm going to get a lot of backlash on this interview.
That's
People
okay.
don't want to hear that because it's a set of symptoms. If you check off enough on that list, you'll have it. That's one thing. So if you have done a complete elimination diet and you're moving and you've done your therapy and you still have the same symptoms, you can tell me you have ADHD. I will accept it for you, right?
Right,
But
right.
if you haven't, we have so much research to back that most of ADHD symptoms is in our nutrition and our movements and just in our society in general. Like, we have been, the amount of input we get now, our brains haven't evolved to handle the amount of
Sensory
stimulation that we
overload.
get.
It's sensory
Yeah,
overload. Yeah.
yeah. So if you have done all that, then you can tell me you have ADHD. Another thing that I'm encountering a lot, and this is where I'm like, oh God, should I go there? A lot of mothers, a lot of that I'm encountering now that are all of a sudden getting ADHD diagnosis. They're just in premenopause. But the premenopause brain and menopause, premenopause and menopause brain, it's a real thing that there's this brain fog, that your brain is rearranging because your amount of hormones are that will do something in they're decreasing.
Wow.
And if you don't balance your hormones, yeah, you'll get an ADHD diagnosis. When I went into premenopause a couple of years ago, I was like, who is this? I did not recognize myself anymore. I was like, who is this person, right? But I
Right.
dialed in my nutrition. I went into I'm like, no, I'm not accepting that this is my brain now. I dialed in everything and I'm fine now, but I'm willing to do the work. And a lot of people just prefer just like, oh, it's just my ADHD. And I'm a very much like about empowerment. If you have
Right.
a serious diagnosis, I still think you can thrive with it, because if you just don't get into that victim mentality, don't hide behind it. But what is mine to do so that I can empower myself and heal my body and my brain?
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
Because it's just too easy, you know, it's what you said. You're just going to give those kid medication, right? And you're
Yeah,
not
it's
supporting your
too,
brain.
and you know what? And I hate to say this too, it's easy.
It's too easy. Yeah.
It's easy to just lump you into a category
Mm-hmm.
and say, oh, okay, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And what that can be more detrimental, but
It is, because
if
it's not giving you tools.
it's not, yeah. And so, but this is really a challenge. This is
It
really a
is.
challenge. And
It's
that's why I say you need a team. You have
yeah.
a good nutrition, because I'm teaching myself nutrition. And I was always fascinated by it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to dedicate an hour, 2 hours, give me some audiobooks, nutrition for dummies, and I'm studying it. And it is the food, but it is also at the cellular level.
Absolutely.
It's with the genomes.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
epigenetic, and
Yeah,
you can change it. You can alter it.
absolutely. That's where my quantum beingness comes in. No, I mean, we know. That's why I'm so much about empowerment, because anybody says to me, "Oh, it's my genes." I'm like, "You're not your genes. You can change your genes.
Mm.
You are the expression of your genes right now, but you can change the expression of your genes by surrounding yourself with, as I said, emotions are flushing of hormones. It's a biological thing. So if you are flushing yourself with negative emotions every time, you're literally flushing your genes with negativity,
Mm, mm, mm.
right? So you can anything that goes in the spectrum of the environment, what you're surrounding yourself with, that's going to have a big impact on the expression of your genes. We know this, like research shows this, that if you are lonely, you have a higher chance of cancer.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard that.
so
I
our
heard
genes.
people now are going in to hospital with the same symptoms of a heart attack because they have a broken heart emotionally.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a broken heart syndrome.
Right.
And there are so many, like, there's everything. Your genes are influenced by everything. So, of course, yeah, it's also ancestry, right? Like what has been passed down through the generations. Like,
Right.
I
And
mean,
it's a learned behavior. Your parents are
yeah,
going to teach you what their parents taught them, what their parents taught them.
of course. But
You're going
also
to eat, right. You're going to eat what they eat. You're going to immerse yourself in those different cultures. I see
yeah,
that.
but also within the DNA, trauma is imprinted. So if you're already more susceptible to that imprint, that's going to suppress more in your DNA. And then that's where it gets really complicated. So that's where we go into a lot of, like, healing that trauma therapy, because we're disconnecting those DNA strands, right? And we're saying, no, it stops here. And I'm not going to pass this down to my generations. I'm freeing the generations before me, but I'm not passing this down to my generations because I'm going to be making different choices on all levels, mental, spiritually, emotionally, nutritionally, physically. I'm going to be doing all the things that will allow my genes to be healthy so that I can pass that down to the generations to come. And it's that's also, I mean, it saddens me when people just go, no, breast cancer is in my family. We it's been studied, it's research, it's not a thing. It's not a thing.
Wow.
You can, by the choices you're making, you can activate that breast cancer,
Wow.
but that breast cancer gene in your system, but it's not automatically so. And we must be so aware of that. So aware.
That's amazing. Well, you
Yeah,
have just done the heavy lifting. We could talk hours for this because it's very fascinating. It
it
is
is.
fascinating, but it gives the parents at least a lane to travel in, to
Yeah.
be able to ask informative questions, to be able
Mm.
to look at your child, have a conversation with your child. Are you feeling a certain way? Are you making friends easy? I've got a friend right now, a dear friend, and it's annoying me. And I'm very intuitive. And the teacher keeps telling her that this child is, he's disruptive. He's not completing his work. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. And I had a conversation with him. I took him to the theater with me. He's like six, maybe, yeah, maybe 6 or 7. He talked to me like a 14-year-old. And, and I'm saying to myself, he is gifted. I'm thinking
Yeah.
he's gifted. And that's
Yeah.
what I keep telling her. Have him tested. Don't go
Yeah.
by the status quo. And I have to say this too. Here in America, and probably all over the world, but here in
All
America,
over.
if you are a darker hue or if you are of a certain ethnicity, you don't have the resources sometimes. You don't have the people that are going to do the deep dives. You're not going to the schools that are going to do the testing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, here in the United States, you got to put a bulletproof vest on your cotton picking kid these days. There's a lot of additional stressors. You've got these
No.
video games that just take it away. Kids don't, put pen to paper anymore to use their brains. They're not challenged. They're put in front of a computer. I go in the grocery store and the mother has a computer to entertain the child the whole time during the time, and the child is maybe
Yeah.
2 or 3 years old. So we have to get more engaged.
Yes.
It's work, but these are your children that you are trying to mold to be independent contributors to society. Let's ask you some fun questions because this is really some heavy lifting. It really is some heavy lifting. If you were not in this field, if you were not a psychologist now working with adults in the highly sensitive, um, what would you be doing with your quantum healing?
Well, I am actually doing my quantum healing a lot now. I've transitioned this year. Well, I took a little break, then I came back, and I thought, you know what? What really makes me happy is a lot of quantum healing.
Mm,
Because I I I just really love transformation from that perspective of magic. I want people to realize and connect to their creator self.
mm,
Again, that's what I'm saying. It's about empowerment. We can keep talking about the heavy lifting, and it's vital. By the way, you said it correctly. We have to be more engaged with our communities, with ourselves, with our children. We have to notice, and we have to be willing to get to know them, really get to know them, because we are too distracted. We are too distracted. We just, it's children are just like in the way. So we have to get to know our children so that we can also empower our children. So that's the first thing. So within that, I believe so much in our creator self. I believe in epigenetics. I believe we can transform our bodies. I believe we can create a very magical life. And I've done it. That's the thing. That's where I my life is so magical that I want
right,
to help people understand that you
right.
can do this too. Like, I didn't come from money, I didn't come from it. And now I'm, debt-free, have a beautiful life, have a great community, have a beautiful husband, like I'm healthy.
Right.
And that
And also,
I
that is the gift. That is the gift and the tools of manifestation.
is
And
that is and
I tell people that.
manifestation.
I
But
was
it's not
telling
even
someone,
manifestation. I want to go further than that because people get stuck on the word manifestation. It's about creation.
right.
Because manifestation sounds too much like I'm just gonna have to make my vision board and it's gonna
No,
and
I was
no.
talking to another guest prior to you, and I
Yeah,
was like, it is not about the vision board. That's a wish list.
yeah,
I need a roadmap. I need a blueprint. I need a template with
yeah,
obstacles to overcome, to challenge me, questions, goals, accountability, responsibility. You've got to show up for the manifestation to do the work.
exactly. You
You
have
can't
to,
just say, "Oh my God, I'm going to win the lottery," or
yeah,
$5 million. But because when you get it, you have to have the tools to sustain it.
exactly. So it's exactly what you said. It's the consistency, it's the discipline, it's the creating the right spaces, showing up in the right places. It's doing the work. It's actually saying, I am the creator of my reality. I am not a victim. Whatever happens happened to me happened for me because
Right,
it created this person and I grew through it.
right.
And I'm going to use those tools that I learned to serve my humanity, to create another experience, but I'm going to create it. It's not just sitting down and saying, oh, I'm just going to visualize and then I'm just going to let go and
Right,
it's going to
right. No,
happen.
it doesn't work that
Now,
way.
it never
Not at
happens
all.
that way.
No.
You have to do the work. You have to take those steps in full surrender and faith that you can do this. That if you're in the right, if you keep showing up for you, you will create the life you want.
And be open to the evolution. Be
Yeah,
open to the change because again, brains, it's not always a straight vertical line. There are going to be, you're going to have to decrease. Sometimes you're going to have to move to the left, to the right, center. Sometimes you just need to be still and not do anything and
and there are
and,
no
and
mistakes.
immerse
There
it.
are no mistakes. They're
No,
just
it's a
pivoting
part of the
moments.
it's a part of the learning process.
Yeah, it's
So
all
back to
part of
my fun questions. If you were an appliance in the kitchen, Karen, what appliance would you be?
appliance in the kitchen. Oh my god! I think I would be the blender.
I get everyone that wants to be the blender because they want to mix it up. I think I'd be the
Well,
refrigerator. I just want to chill.
no, I like to move. I like to shake it. Shake it a lot. I like to move, and it's not about mixing it up. It's about trying all new, like blending. It's the blending of
The
things. Like
mixing of
don't
things.
don't don't get stuck in one thing. You may blend it. It's not just one way. There are many ways.
Right.
Find your way.
Absolutely.
Blend it.
Absolutely. If you were a car, what kind of car would you be?
Darn. Hmm. I think I'd just be a very boring station wagon. I don't know. Like I, you know, with a little fat ass.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be absolutely cool. What kind of music do you like? What really lights you up? What makes you just really, just makes you get on your feet?
Music. Oh, I love all types of music, but of course I'm Dominican, so
Okay.
any beat I hear, I have to move. And um I cannot listen to music and not move. That's really I think it's a Latin thing. You just
But it's a
you
stimuli.
cannot not. So I think and I've been even like chastised that I even, if reggaeton comes on, they're like, oh, but that's such disgusting music. I'm like, but it's a
I love it. Oh, I know. That's like me. I like music too. Don't let there be some good gangster rap, some DMX, and
I know
people
it's
don't
like
think that.
if
But I
this has
also
a
like
beat,
country. Yeah, I also like country. I also like classical because it stimulates the brain in a different way.
I love music. I
I do
love
too.
music and I
I do
love to
too.
move and I love to dance. Dancing is really kind of like the only ways that I you'll get me to do cardio.
If I came to visit you in Portugal, where would you take me?
Ooh. I will give you a beautiful tour of the area because there's just so much beauty in the nature here. It's just beautiful lagoons and beaches and cliffs and I'll take you to Obidos, which is just this beautiful medieval village with all castles and I'll take you for yummy food and I'll just show you, I'll just tour you around because it's just my area is so beautiful that we could spend days just touring around.
Well, it sounds exciting because I told you I'm coming that way.
Yeah, well, if you must let me know when you come my way. I mean,
I'm telling you,
I would be
it's next
deeply
year.
insulted if you don't
No,
let
no,
me
no, no.
know.
I'm not gonna miss that. I'm not gonna miss
Okay,
that at
cool.
all. If you were an animal,
Mm,
what animal would you be?
a cat. Yeah,
A cat?
absolutely a cat. Yeah. I they're like timeline shifters, energy movers, uh, highly intuitive,
Mhm.
but they like to chill too. So,
Yeah,
I like the blend of
absolutely.
that.
If you could have a conversation with yourself at 25 years old, what would you say?
Oh, God, look at you. Look at you. Just that.
So, Karen, you have been a wealth of information. You have given us so much texture, so much meat on the bone that we can share with our parents and with, again, not just parents, but with highly sensitive adults, because that is the field that you're working in now, you're specializing in. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you so they can, you know, go through the checklist, ask the right questions, get involved, not be pigeonholed, look at choices and look at options. How do they get in contact with you?
Well, you can always reach out, just karenmonster@gmail.com. Just my private email. I prefer that the most. Just reach out to me. Tell me your story. What are you struggling with? What do you need? And if I'm your person, I'll get back to you. If I'm not your person, then I'll make sure to connect you to the right people so that you can get the support, right? I think it's so important to listen to, what you need and what your child needs. It's not I'm not working with them anymore, but it's not like I'm a wealth of information. I can help you. And I do still do consults with parents and coaching parents through with their children if that's what they need.
Well, you are a
And
carer, if nothing else. You are a person
yeah,
that really cares and you light up the room. And I
oh,
can see that it'd be very pleasant working with you. You're animated, you're fun, you like to
mhm.
dance, you got that cat in you, you like to blend it up, all of those great things. So thank you so much for being here on the Edge Brains. We're going to put our contact information in the back. We want you to love, like, share, and subscribe, but most importantly, connect. If you
Yeah,
feel that there is something not wrong, but different, all of us are different. That
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's a negative unless we don't address it. There's a lot of children that have misdiagnosis. There's a lot of children that need the help. There's a lot of parents that are dealing with suppressed issues from their childhood, from their epigenetics. There is still hope. When the light comes on in the morning, it's an opportunity to start again. Thank you so much. Go here, love, like, share. Thank you again from Portugal, Karen Munster. Bye, brains.